Okay, it's the middle of the day, so I'm assuming some people will watch this on the playback on Facebook, and then my church asked me to start making these a little more to respond to cultural things. So we also going to put this on YouTube. So several years ago, I started um, my church, Bridge Church, in 2014 is when we started doing our Sunday services. And so we did it on Easter in 2013. And so Easter of 2013 was April 20th. And so date had no significance to me. And so as I'm setting up, getting ready, and I'm telling people the date is on April 20th, 420. And as I would tell people in the street, they'd be like, "Oh, that's a great day to." It's as this is. I'm like, "That's a great day for him to rise again," And I didn't know. I was like, "Yeah, cool." And so it was kind of a running joke that I didn't know. Little did I know that the date 420 is kind of a date in cannabis culture to speak of. It's like the annual Weed Smokers Day. So my church started on 420, uh, the annual weed smoking holiday, I guess you could say. So I had to figure out pretty quick, what that meant. Um, but I do think that right now, um, there's several angles I want to look at the issue of um, marijuana, and then I want to look at weed smoking. Okay, so the first thing is we know very clearly that much of black and brown communities have been decimated from marijuana sales. And the level of incarceration that's happened because of that has caused many young black men to find themselves in prison. What we know statistically is that black and brown drug use and white drug use is on par to be the same, but black and brown men and women get thrown in jail far more often because of its sale and its use. So the good thing about New York City legalizing marijuana is essentially allowing New York to let people out of prison that have been there, but moreover, and I'm reading this from the New York Times, that the legalization of marijuana is going to also have a robust program that reinvests millions of dollars in tax revenues from cannabis into minority communities. Now that is a good thing, because in essence it's drug use for the sake of recreation, like you do alcohol. Now, I'm not saying marijuana is alcohol. We'll talk about that in a second. But I do think it's worth noting that from a legal standpoint, this is a good thing for the black and brown community to no longer have this be one of the primary means by which we see black men disappear into prison. Now, what about drug use though, as a Christian? What about it as a Christian in general? And I think it's really important that we note that drug use from a biblical standpoint is just silent. We don't have anything to speak to it. The fact of the matter is, drug use is um, a part of the culture, but it's just not in the Bible, right? Now I've had a lot of people say, Jesus Jesus was from Nazareth, and people used to get high in that, all these different things, okay? But there's just no content in the Bible to speak to it. The other thing that I think is worth noting is that the Bible doesn't prohibit alcohol use. In fact, it celebrates alcohol use with the Lord's Communion, even Jesus' first miracle, turning water into wine. So we see some indication with alcohol use how we should look at prohibitions for marijuana use. But there's a couple things we should keep in mind. The first of which is the Bible does have prohibitions on moderation in alcohol use, right? In Ephesians 5, where it says it literally says don't get drunk with wine. So we know that later it tells us that the wine use, the drunkenness, leads to dissipation. It leads to you being out of your senses, out of your sorts. So really the principle is everything being done in moderation. Now, can you smoke weed in moderation? I don't know. I have not smoked weed in years. So I don't know if that's possible. Um, Here's my understanding. Alcohol drinking can be done with food. And when you drink with food, you have a glass and you eat, and it can actually be a benefit to the food. It can be a benefit for your heart. But not everyone drinks to get drunk. But let me tell you, nobody smokes. Well, I don't know. I don't know the smoking culture, but I mean, folks smoke to get high, right? And being inebriated is in essence the culture of weed smoking is to get high, is to be inebriated, to be out of your sorts. So I think that's one of the classic things we have to be cautious about is it taking me out of my sorts. And this is where the Bible speaks to much of why moderation is an issue, right? Um, because weed smoking can be a space where you begin to become dependent on it for your sense of rest, for even your sense of your artistic senses. You might be able to sing better, you might be able to draw better, you might be able to think better. And again, there are medicinal purposes for marijuana that I'm not really speaking about. That maybe if you have MS or there can be other ranges for medical use, but I'm presuming that medical use also has moderation in mind, not getting high. But for those of you that are you gonna smoke, you're gonna smoke, or you're considering smoking weed. I think that the legalization of weed speaks to what the Bible in First Corinthians was talking about in First Corinthians 10 and 8, where it says all things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. So smoking weed is now lawful, but is it beneficial? Okay. Is it beneficial? Is this going to help you with your walk with God? Rather than asking, can a Christian smoke weed? A better question to ask is weed smoking beneficial to my walk with God? It's like when people ask me what they can do when they date. I'm like, well, you obviously shouldn't have sex, but moreover, asking me what you can do versus how can we grow in our relationship with God together is, that's a better question. So the picture that we want to create in our minds are, you want to be a growing Christian. You want to be a person that's always pursuing God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. You also want to be a person that rests in God. Worship causes you to rest. Fellowship encourages you, not necessarily a substance. The second thing to keep in mind is as a believer, we are in a spiritual battle, and part of that spiritual battle causes us to in a lot of ways have to be keep a sense of awareness about us, be watchful. The Bible will talk about, right? Keep watch. And I think that one of the things that weed does is it does take you out of your senses. It does take away a strong sense of awareness. And I think that what should be leading you is the Spirit. And that's where the Bible kind of, so the Ephesians 5 text says, don't get drunk with wine, right? But to be filled with the Spirit. So you see what it's saying? It's saying that alcohol takes you out of your senses, and it's saying it's analogous to the way that the Spirit of God is supposed to be causing you to do things that you would never do in your flesh. That the Spirit of God should cause you to have peace with Him, but peace with other people that you would never have in your flesh. Joy that you would never have in your flesh. See, so the Spirit of God is indicative of you being drawn into a life and lifestyle that is not of your own. It's an alien peace, an alien joy that you are saying, I want that because I don't have it right now. And oftentimes, instead of seeking God, we will seek a substance, and we want weed to make me happy, or we want alcohol to make me happy, and so that moderation is an indication that I don't want anything to control me. And this is what Paul gets back to in 1 Corinthians, where he says, I'll be mastered by nothing. And the truth is that weed out of moderation becomes weed as a master. And you don't want that to be your lifestyle. So we want to get filled with the Spirit, and we want to have the Spirit life be our life, not the blunted life, not the stone life, not the high life, not the baked life. And so, and if a Christian tells you otherwise, like, yo, it's cool to get high and you're high all the time, they're wrong. Bottom line, they're wrong. And they cannot back that up with the Word of God. Moreover, just, my prayer is that you are a person that has evidence of the Spirit in your life, that you're walking in the Spirit. And I believe that a person walking in the Spirit is sensitive to anything that takes them out of a posture of faithfulness to God. All right? So be very wise. This is not because it's not legal, because it's not illegal, doesn't make it in the right or wrong category as much from the state side. But I think we have to think about wisdom and foolishness, right? And so allow that to guide you. I pray the Spirit of God guides you in this. And I pray you let nothing take you away from a consistent posture of walking with God, walking in the Spirit, and having the fruit of the Spirit be your identity, not the fruit of anything else. God bless you.